If you think this is just another routine draft day, you might be completely underestimating what's about to happen. There are decisions being made right now that could define the future of this franchise for years, and one of them has already sent a very clear message about where this team is headed. But here's the real question. Are the Ravens playing it safe, or are they preparing something much bigger than anyone expects? Because when you connect the latest contract move with everything we're hearing about the 14th pick, it starts to look like there's a strategy here that not everyone is seeing yet. And believe me, when you realize what might happen next, your perspective on this entire draft might change. Before we go any further, make sure you've already clicked the like button if you truly believe this team is ready to compete in the Super Bowl again this season. And I want to see something from you in the comments right now, right? The Ravens will dominate in 2026 if you believe this team is about to take the next step. Now, let's talk about why this matters. Since entering the league, Flowers has been nothing short of electric. We're talking about a player who has already accumulated over 3,100 receiving yards and 237 catches since 2023, putting him among the top performers in the entire NFL over that span. That level of production, combined with his consistency, missing just one game in 3 seasons, paints the picture of a cornerstone player, not just another weapon in the offense. Inside the building, the belief in him is even stronger. He's viewed as a legitimate playmaker, someone defenses struggle to contain, and one of the hardest working individuals on the roster. There's also a strong personal connection with Lamar Jackson, which adds another layer of chemistry that you simply cannot manufacture. But here's where things get really interesting for the long term. While locking in that 5th-year option gives the Ravens flexibility, it also delays a bigger question. Should they commit to a massive long-term extension? Because let's be real, this roster is loaded with talent, and that comes at a cost. Big contracts are already being handed out across the team, and more players will soon be in line for significant paydays. That creates a delicate balancing act. Flowers absolutely has a case to be among the top-paid receivers if he continues producing at this level, especially if he stacks another 1,000-yard season. But once you start talking about numbers creeping into the mid to high $30 million range annually, that's where tough decisions begin. The Ravens need to be sure they're paying for sustained elite performance, not just potential. Now shifting gears to the draft, because everything happening right now is connected. The buzz around the Ravens pick at number 14 is getting louder, and there's a growing sense of clarity, or at least, perceived clarity. Multiple insiders and analysts are pointing toward one name, an offensive guard out of Penn State who is being widely projected to land in Baltimore. And what's fascinating here is the pattern. Last year, there was a similar build-up around a specific player, and it turned out to be exactly what happened. This time, history might be repeating itself. The idea is simple. Even if the Ravens have decent depth at guard, do you pass on someone who is viewed as a can't-miss prospect? A potential 10 to 12-year starter, multi-time Pro Bowler, and possibly the best offensive lineman in the entire class? That's the kind of decision that defines franchises. At the same time, there are other scenarios in play. If a high-upside defensive player unexpectedly falls to 14, that could completely change the conversation. There are also more creative possibilities being floated, including trades and unexpected positional picks. But based on everything circulating right now, it feels like the Ravens have a clear plan, unless something dramatic disrupts it. And that's what makes this moment so compelling. You've got a team with Super Bowl aspirations, a front office trying to stay both strategic and unpredictable, and a roster that is already strong but still looking for that final edge. Because if there's one thing we've learned about the Baltimore Ravens over the years, it's that they are always thinking 2 steps ahead, and right now, every move feels calculated toward one ultimate goal: getting back into serious Super Bowl contention. Now continuing from where we left off, the draft board scenario is where things could get really unpredictable. Even though all signs are pointing toward that offensive guard out of Penn State, there's still a very real possibility that a high-impact defensive player could slide down to pick 14. And if that happens, everything changes in an instant. There's been growing discussion about edge talent potentially falling, and if a name like that is sitting there when the Ravens are on the clock, this front office is going to have a serious internal debate. Do you stick with the safe, high-floor offensive lineman who can anchor your line for a decade, or do you take a swing on a defensive playmaker who could elevate your pass rush to another level? And that's not even the only twist being floated right now. One of the more surprising projections had the Ravens selecting a tight end at 14, then trading back into the first round to grab a defensive tackle. That kind of aggressive maneuver would signal that Baltimore is not just trying to fill needs, they're trying to dominate matchups across the board. But let's be honest here, that type of move feels unlikely. It would require giving up additional capital, and for a team that already has strong foundations, it might be seen as unnecessary risk. Still, the fact that it's even being discussed shows how many directions this team could go. Now let's talk about the dream scenario that's been building momentum behind the scenes. There's a wide receiver prospect that has been gaining serious traction, someone believed to have the highest ceiling in the entire class. The interesting part? That belief wasn't mainstream at first, but now, more voices are starting to echo it. If the Ravens were to go in that direction, pairing another elite receiving talent with Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson, you're suddenly looking at an offense that could become one of the most explosive units in the league. It would be a bold move, no doubt, but one that could completely reshape the identity of this team. At the same time, the most realistic outcome still feels like it comes down to two names, the offensive guard and the tight end. Both are expected to be available, both fill important roles, and both could contribute immediately to a roster that is already built to win now. And then there's the wild card scenario, the one that fans are already debating heavily. A defensive prospect that, if selected, would spark strong reactions. Not necessarily because of lack of talent, but because of fit and value at that spot. And if the Ravens go in that direction, it would definitely be one of the more controversial decisions we've seen in recent drafts. So where does that leave us? You've got Zay Flowers locked in through 2027, giving stability and continuity to the offense. You've got a draft pick at 14 that could go in multiple directions depending on how the board falls. And you've got a front office that is clearly trying to balance long-term sustainability with immediate championship aspirations. This is one of those moments where everything connects, contracts, draft strategy, roster construction, all aligning toward what the Ravens believe is their window to win it all. And this is exactly where things start to feel even more intense behind the scenes, because the closer we get to that moment when the Ravens are officially on the clock, the more you realize just how many layers there are to this decision. We talked about the realistic options, the safe picks, and even the aggressive scenarios, but there's something else that can't be ignored here, the internal expectations inside the building. This is not a team in rebuild mode. This is not a team experimenting. This is a franchise that fully believes it should be competing for a Super Bowl right now. And when that's your mindset, every single decision carries more weight. Because drafting a player at 14 isn't just about talent, it's about impact. It's about asking, who can step into this locker room and immediately help us win in January? Who can be trusted in the biggest moments? Who fits the identity that this team has been building around toughness, discipline, and execution? That's why the offensive guard option keeps coming back into focus. It may not be flashy. It may not get the biggest reaction on draft night. But if this player becomes exactly what analysts are projecting, a long-term, elite presence on the offensive line, then you're protecting your quarterback, strengthening your run game, and setting the foundation for sustained success. At the same time, passing on a potential game-changing defensive or offensive weapon is never easy, especially when you consider how quickly things can shift in the NFL. One breakout player can completely transform a unit. And let's not forget, the Ravens have been here before. Situations where the expected pick seemed obvious, and then something unexpected happened. That's why even with all the reports, all the mock drafts, all the certainty, nothing is guaranteed. There's also a psychological aspect to this. When multiple insiders align on one prediction, sometimes it's because the league truly believes that's the direction. Other times, it's smokescreen season. And the Ravens, historically, are not afraid to let the noise build while they quietly stick to their own board. So as fans, you're watching this